What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into Barley Studios. I'm super excited to bring you this video. We've already made a lot of progress on this project, which is the overall From the Grave 3D sculpted tumbler. Now, of course, this is more of a trophy than anything else, but it is still really fun to really push our sculpting skills and create something on an awesome base like a tumbler. Now, of course, this will be a drinkable tumbler, but like I said before, it's more of a trophy. We've came a long way. We've created this entire cobblestone effect with these little inset skulls. We've got a really nice mortar texture between all of them. And on the back, we actually did something a little bit different. We kind of kept the overall mortar texture with the cobblestone all the way around for the most part. Kind of keeping that theme going. We kept some big skulls at the bottom and a few, going all the way up. And then until we get to this nice large skull at the very top. I try to keep that a little bit more Tim Burton-esque as far as the look of it. However, I want to make sure that we can kind of break part of that off, leave it down at the bottom and kind of detail that. And then what we'll do is we'll probably leave it right there on the edge, when we paint it, so it kind of stands out against the dirt base. But overall, I'm really happy with how the cobblestone texture turned out. Now, in the previous video, I did much more of a walkthrough of that. But just be aware that if you want to see those videos, they will be under the playlist, which will also be linked at the end of this video. So if you want to go back and watch any of those videos, you can do so. On the front of the item in session number 4, we were able to go ahead and carve in RIP. Now that is very inset into the sculpture here, but we will come back later and kind of bring that forward a little bit. You can see we did a faded cobblestone at the bottom. We also did a little bit of a faded cobblestone at the top. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have a lot of mortar texture, and it also doesn't have a lot of projection as far as the stones out away from the concrete or mortar background. And I want to make sure that those are kind of inset a little bit so they can just be a little bit flush. And that way it doesn't look like the concrete is so far out of place. But today in this video, this is session number 5. Again, go back and watch some of the other videos to get you up to this point. If you want to see some sculpting techniques or things that I like to do in my processes, make sure you go check that out. This is a very large tumbler, and I can't wait to weigh this thing. So to begin this, what we're doing today is we're going to go ahead and begin the process of applying the hand coming out of the dirt base. And I'll be honest with you guys, I really did not think that I was going to do this. I know that I kind of talked about at the very beginning of the series, but for the most part, because I've been just kind of keeping it free form, I've just been going with the flow, I wasn't really sure if I was going to do this because I didn't want to run out of time. And I wanted to have this project done completely by, I'd hope, by Halloween. This is my Halloween project for 2023. And I just wanted to take y'all along the way. But I did just decide to go ahead and keep the original design I had in my head. I do believe that this arm is a lot smaller than I had anticipated. But I really want the scale to be somewhat realistic. So I imagine that the gravestone would be so much larger than our hand. And what I mean by that is the proportions got to be right. And I don't think that the zombie hand that I had originally decided in my head, pictured in my head, would be cascading all the way up and kind of over the top of the gravestone. That would be more like a small pedestal type of gravestone, and I want this to be very prominent in the overall sculpture. I also want the RIP and any kind of detail work. I would like to try to incorporate some gold leaf into the monogram there. Although it is a simple just RIP, I want to do some fun stuff with that. So I want to make sure that's visible from a majority of the angles of the sculpture. And I think the arm is just a little bit of an additive just to make it say, hey, this is a zombie or an undead person just bursting back to life. I'm not dead, you guys. Please, I'm not dead, man. But as you can see, I'm really just kind of blocking things in here. I did create an armature wire system out of a thicker armature wire with a loop at the bottom. And I kind of blended that into the base. It's just going to give it a little bit of strength once it's all kind of set up and finalized. Now, as we really start to get into some time lapse here, this is at 6 times speed for the majority of this video, same as before. What we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and just wrap clay around the arm until I can get the overall thickness. I'm also trying to mark off where I would like my knuckles to be, and I'll start to block those in a little bit at a time. Now, I had originally made one extra armature wire for this arm, and I did cut that off. So if you saw a total of 6 digits instead of 5, that's the reason why. I was also contemplating the idea of like having 1 digit completely removed and like dropped off to the side, and I decided not to do that with this option here. I decided to keep it just kind of simple, kind of keep it all together, and we'll make a little bloodiness here and there as we paint it and detail it. But for the most part, I really want the gravestone and the bursting from the dirt to really kind of draw the eye, instead of like just extra things just laying throughout the ecosystem of the base. Does that make sense? I hope it does. As you can see here, this is a little bit of a process here, and this is just the way that I like to sculpt my hands here, in this way that I really just feel comfortable doing it. I really want to do it free form, instead of using any kind of presses or any kind of stencils or any kind of reference photos. I'm using no reference photos except for my hand. So I guess no photos at all. So I'm using my live hand as the reference there. And as far as getting the thumb to the right shape, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because it is undead, and we'll shave a lot of this off to give it kind of like a bone undead type of texture. But for the most part, I want it to be kind of realistic as proportions. So that pinky needs to be a lot shorter. That middle finger needs to be a little bit longer, and the index needs to be longer than the pointer finger. And if I can kind of achieve that in some ways, even if they are bent and you really can't tell, it does help with the overall illusion of it quite a bit. Now the hand, it looks like it's pretty much gloved there. It's really thick. It's really rounded at the tips of the fingers. But we're going to start to kind of shave this down here. We're going to define the knuckles, and then we'll continuously add clay to the base where the arm is to get the overall thickness of the arm that we need. I really think I'll play with the idea of probably adding maybe like a water slide like decal to the arm to kind of give it just a super easy but fun and vibrant maybe plaid texture or something. I'm gonna experiment with that, so I'm gonna have fun with that. I'll probably paint it like a base color, and then I'll do like a water slide over it, wrapped all the way around it, and then trim the water slide in place. We'll kind of see how that progresses as we get to those stages. Of course, this is going to have a lot of dirt texture and a lot of dirt dust on it. If I do sculpt any fingernails on these fingers, then they'll be kind of cankered and weird looking and really like small and shriveled. And I'll probably put a lot of dirt and decay under those. And I might even blacken them a little bit. That'd be kind of cool if I can like blacken them with a glossy, like pitch black. And then I can add some dirt to those. Now, this is probably one of the hardest parts of the overall sculpture here, is just trying to get the inside arm. Now, I wanted to really kind of sculpt the arm in place with the armature wire on the bottom. And if I had sculpted this separately and then just added it to the base after the fact, yeah, I probably would have made my life a lot easier. But this is just the way that I had decided to do it. I wanted to do it on the base itself. As I created this. So I had to kind of bend the arm back and away from the gravestone, at least temporarily. And because I only used one armature wire in the actual arm itself, although it's a thicker one, it allows me to easily move it. If I wrap the armature wire around each other and put a lot of twists in it, increase the overall structure of it, then it makes it more difficult to do this without damaging the Sculpey Original. I really do love Sculpey Original. I think it's really forgiving, and I think it's a really great clay. Even if it's a beginner level clay, I really still enjoy using it. If I'm doing something a lot more expensive, if somebody specifically asks me for longevity and a specific type of clay, then of course I'm going to use that clay. But for the price point that you get for a pound of Sculpey Original, it's really hard to beat that. And not to mention that it's just an easy clay to keep on hand for the kids to play with. I don't feel bad when they completely demolish a pack of clay trying to learn or sculpt something and it doesn't turn out great. In my mind's eye, to them it's very a proud moment for them to turn out some piece of artwork, and this is a really great clay for them to do so. My daughter's not at the stage really where I'm really ready to incorporate her art into my YouTube channel, but eventually I'll probably create like a kids playlist or something on the homepage, where I can kind of incorporate kids light projects, whether that be drawing and markers. There's so many projects out there that I have ideas for, but we just have to get caught up on some projects around the studio, clean things up so the kids can get in here and really create a bunch of things. So as you can see here, I did build up the knuckles. the back of the knuckles on the main hand, and that kind of silhouettes where the actual fingers really truly begin, right? And then you go into the webbing of the fingers, which we don't really care about in this situation, and then I kind of sculpted out the meat of the fingers away from the joints. So if you're sculpting these as a live fingers, they're fully filled, and they're not decayed, and they're not starved or ancient, like the Crypt Keeper type of ancient. Then the meat of the fingers between the knuckles would be slightly curved, and they'd be filled out. But in this situation, this is kind of like a zombie undead hand, so you need to kind of take that meat away. That fat and that tendon and that liquid in between the knuckles won't be there anymore. So the knuckles will be the most prominent thing in the fingers. So you need to make sure that you kind of think about proportions. You need to think about how like that things would actually look if they were in the state of decay. Now let's be honest, the colors that we use, sometimes the mediums and the bloods that we use, they're not truly realistic, but it's fun just to kind of incorporate those things so that the mind's eye of the viewer will take over, and they're like, that's blood. Oh, that's an undead hand because it's starved and it's coming out of the dirt. You just kind of want to make sure that the viewer is able to capture those things. It's almost as if they're looking at a painting, and that you want them to capture what you're saying in the painting when they look at it. It's very similar in a lot of ways. So as I lean this over here, I want to make sure that I make at least some sort of contact with the actual main sculpture itself. And to do so, I went ahead and stuck 2 extra thin gauge armature wires into the middle finger and the index finger, and I just inserted those into the actual stone sculpture. Now, that's very important here because that is where they're making contact with the gravestone, and we're going to remove a little bit of clay there so that we can create some scratches. Now, yes, if they were to scratch this one time, it probably would not take away this much of the stone. However, we're going to go ahead and just detail that to the same shade as a lot of the other parts of the RIP or some of the insets of the eyes. I don't know yet how I want to do that, but it will be very cool, and it will look pretty realistic. We may even leave a little bit of a blood texture behind that leads to the fingers, just to kind of signify that this is indeed where the fingers are scratching the sculpture here. So you can see it's really starting to come along. You can really see the tendons in the back of the hand. And as we continue this, it really will intensify. Now the color is going to be the next level, right? So sculpting in all white, it's great and all. You can really see where it's going. But when we start to add color and detail work to this, then that's really where it's going to shift, and it's going to take a next step. I really felt like we needed to incorporate some kind of blood onto the hand, and I just felt like we needed something. So I went ahead and stabbed it with some bite marks, and then I went ahead and folded the meat of the palm at the thumb over, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to texture that so that it has like a nice meaty texture, really like kind of chewed up. It's not like the zombie or impossible zombie got a hold of the meat and actually took it away. But maybe somebody bit him, or maybe like a child bit him before he died, or maybe his hand's been sticking out of the ground for so long that maybe another zombie or another undead thing said, let's take a bite out of that. Maybe, I don't know. But I wanted to make sure I incorporated the opportunity for some blood texture. I'll also go in ahead and carved out part of the sleeve here. We will detail the sleeve a little bit more on the side, where I'm just kind of like sculpting it a little bit here and there, folding over the edges of the wrinkled sleeve, kind of make it look like it's sagging down the arm slightly. Maybe I'll introduce a little bit of the wrist bone there before we kind of like go into the sleeve there. But as you can see here, what I'm doing here is I'm sculpting in the bone texture of the kind of the upper forearm. So you can kind of see I'm just kind of removing a little bit of that, just showing the one bone. I'm not showing both bones. I'm only showing one of the bones. And by having that sticking out there, it gives me another opportunity to apply some meat, blood texture to the outside edges of the bone, and then we can paint the bone in an aged bone texture type of look. So it'll really come together when it's all said and done, and the color is really going to intensify, as I said before. Now what I'm doing here is I'm kind of lowering the overall profile of the base. I really don't feel like it has to be a perfect like cylinder, not cylinder, oval shape or a circular shape on the base. I really want it to be kind of oblong and kind of abstract, and I don't want to keep all of my sculpture bases the same shape. And by me recycling that clay, as long as I don't hit my aluminum foil base, then this is just adding to character to the base, I think. Because a lot of this is going to be some dirt textures. I'm going to try to introduce some flocking, because this is more of a trophy than an actual legitimate drinking tumbler. And then the flocking wouldn't survive a dishwasher or hand washing, of course. But it is very interesting to be able to incorporate some of those ideas and those textures into the overall base. Like I said, I'm going to sell this as a trophy sculpture for Halloween decor and shelving. So it's not really something I intend for people to drink out of. And I'm not saying I don't make tumblers that people drink out of anymore. I'm just saying that they're less and far and few between, because I feel like these just have a higher price point, and is an opportunity for me to really explore my creation process and really push myself to make more and bigger and better items. Whereas opposed just a simple, a 3D tumbler really doesn't allow me to push myself as these do. So you'll see me sometimes create these, and then I'll start another one or a different one, or I'll work on some customer orders, and then I'll have to come back to this later on down the road to kind of finish it out. But I'm hoping to have this done by Halloween. Spooky season. I'm applying a little bit of texture here. It's kind of like a tapering the bottom rim there. I don't want that to be a super jagged edge there, which could potentially break later on down the road. And I still might come in later and I might add a little bit of carpet to the base. We'll have to see how the overall sculpture turns out, and I'll decide what I want to do with it. Right now, I'm just going to continue adding a little bit of a dirt raised edges and different variations in the dirt texture all the way around, but I'm really close to calling it quits for now. And I'll come back in later and I'll apply just a little bit more texture to the base. I'll come in and I'll apply a little bit more texture to the bottom, the top, and the mortar and things like that, and just really lock in the overall final details before this portion of the build is ready to be baked. Now, don't forget, we do have the topper we still have to make. I will make that in video number 6, or session number 6 of this series. And some of these are run together, some of these are made on TikTok Live or YouTube Live. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. You never know when I'm going to pop on and make something absolutely awesome for you guys. But I do hope y'all like this format of video. This is more of a kind of a vlog, non-professional background type of video. So I'm just kind of running with the project and having fun. Later, guys.